We now beam the spotlight on Nigeria's youth, the heartbeat of our democracy, the engine of our economy and the soul of our future. From unemployment to innovation, from street protests to political appointments, the youth agenda is no longer a footnote, it's front page. But is Nigeria truly investing in its young people or simply pacifying them with little promises here and there? Joining us from this discussion is a man at the center of youth policy, party mobilization and national engagement, the national youth leader of the All Progressive Congress, Honorable Dayo Israel. A warm welcome to you, Dayo Israel. Thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Thank you very much, Benga. Well, good morning, and how's it going over there where you are?
Very well, thank you. We're glad to have you for this very important conversation. We have quite a lot to unpack, so let's get straight into it. Honorable Israel, you've spoken several times about youth empowerment under the Renewed Hope agenda of the government. What specific metrics show progress, not just plans, in employment, education, and entrepreneurship? And how are we faring so far?
Thank you very much, Benga, and the team, and it's a good morning from this side of Lagos that I am. I want to start by saying that youth development is a critical part of nation building. Our demography, young people under the age of, in particular, 40 and below, form a huge percentage of our population. We're also the generation that owns the future. And so it's important that we're giving priority, a seat at the table, and opportunities, enabling environment in issues that affect us. And I don't take that lightly. And that also forms part of what I do as National Youth Leader of the ruling party. Not just in terms of advocacy, lobbying policymakers to drive youth inclusion, but also even in terms of programmatic activities that we do at the Youth House of the ruling party that I just set up in Abuja, which is in Wuse, where part of what we do is to engage young people, build skills of young people, and also in addition to that, create enabling environment for young people to engage policymakers and key decision makers. There are 4 or more buckets of importance and priority for young people. One of them is education. Another one is employment and job creation. Another is enterprise. And you have many others, healthcare, social well-being. But I think that out of all of this, one of the most important parts of all of this is education, because education is what makes the children of the poor to be able to have the same experience as the children of the rich. Education is a leveler. It gives you a baseline to be able to build upon to achieve success. And so I hold, and I believe in the same for a lot of young people, importance in investment in education. And if you look at what the current administration is doing, we're very excited about the investment that the president is doing in terms of education, in particular through things like the student loan. Because before now, apart from the few that are lucky to get bursaries and scholarships, you have a critical mass, a large demography of young people who want to get education but do not have the resources to. And so we're excited when the president inaugurated the student loan program and the NEL fund, so that the young people of Nigeria want to get into school, do not have to bother their parents and burden their guardian on school fees and, of course, things like stipends to support them in school. So when the government introduced the student loan, thousands of young people across Nigeria benefited from it. They pay the funding directly to the institution, and they pay the pocket money directly to the student themselves. You don't get to pay anything until all of this funding, until you have graduated and you are in employment. So because you graduated does not mean you start paying the loan.
Conclude the conversation. We're just scratching the surface because there's so much to unpack. There's youth restiveness, there's protests, there's a massive unemployment among youth. So there's a lot to discuss, and we're just touching Nelfund, which is, I mean, a lot of people who have praised it said it's a great initiative, but not all the Nigerian youths are interested in going to university. And university education, okay, after getting it, doesn't really guarantee you employment, because where are the factories, where are the opportunities, who is going to absorb all of these graduates into the workforce? How about those that want to be entrepreneurs? And Nigerian youths, for example, in Lagos, those that are not doing anything, the area boy menace. These are conversations that we would like to have with Honorable Dayo Israel. Hopefully we can have him back.
Us.
Yes.
Welcome back to the conversation, Israel. We're speaking about the student loans and the importance of the student loan. Please go ahead.
That's one phase, for example. So education is a leveler, it's an enabler. It puts you on a pedestal. So that's one angle. The second angle is the areas of job creation. There's so many interventions that the federal government is doing now, in particular in the areas of TVETs, and vocational skills and all of that. You will also recall that the Minister of Education recently was speaking and announced that young people, even people on the street, people who don't have educational degree, that want to do vocational training programs, that want to build their skills from organizing to welding and all of that, are going to even be paid for signing up in those institutions, because those skills are very important. I grew up in England in my teenage years, a little part of my teenage years to my adolescence. And I know that if you call out a plumber in England, for example, it's £75 at that time, just for them to come and check what's going on. They haven't fixed the problem, but the call-out fee was £75. And so there's skills that we need to pay premium for. We need to respect, we need to honor, we need to make more professional. And those are areas where the federal government is investing a lot. For example, there's a lot of TVET intervention directly through the Ministry of Education and also through the Office of the Assistant to the President on TVET, Biola Rogudadi, and many others who are doing a lot in terms of building capacity, and also supported by civil society organizations. So in skill building, in particular vocational skills, you have that. Even at the level at the party, at the youth house in Abuja, every week there's a couple of trainings going on. Tomorrow, for example, we're training young Nigerians on how to bake cakes, confectionaries, caterings, and all of that. 2 weeks ago, we had a digital skill training program at the APC Youth House in Abuja. So we're teaching young people in tech, we're teaching young people in vocational skills, we're teaching young people in soft skills, employability skills, and there's a lot beyond even the party that the government is doing across the country. Because today, career is not just in the classroom, it's also skill development. Many people are able to do a lot, from even coding, and other IT skills. And then finally, before I yield the mic, is also the issues of enterprise development. There are a lot of young people that want to set up businesses. They want to be entrepreneurs. They want to run their own initiatives. And so it's to also look at how is government supporting and funding those ideas. Yes, a lot of young people are getting seed fund and capital from the private sector, but also the administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu is also supporting young people with resources for their startups. SMIDAN, for example, Bank of Industry, and Nexim Bank have some of the organizations that are financing startups, financing young entrepreneurs with different seed grants to be able to help to establish their business.
Okay. I mean, you've highlighted some of these good works that the federal government is putting in place, but some young persons will some way disagree and say that you can tell by the number of young persons you find on the street. I mean, take a look at the protest yesterday. You have a lot of unemployed youths who had to join the protest, and not just that of yesterday, but also previous protests that we've seen. Can you also share with us, aside from Nelfund, aside from what has been provided by the federal government, what is also expected of the federal government in regards to helping the youths to secure jobs, especially now, because we've not seen jobs, circulating around the country. And then secondly, I just want to add, what also happened to the youth confab? We're supposed to have a youth confab. I think it was supposed to be February this year, but it never actually happened.
So thank you very much. One of the things I love the fact that you raised is that there's still a lot that needs to be done. So you understand that we're a country with a huge population. Over 70% of our population are young people. And I agree with you that there's a bucket of young people out there who are not able to access opportunities. Now, the reality is that some are not able to access it, not because opportunity don't exist for them, but because they're not aware or they're not benefiting, or they don't believe and trust. I'll give you an example. I meet a lot of young people who maybe I'm in a restaurant and I see them and I'm like, oh, why are you not in school? Or what did you study? And okay, I'm waiting to go to university. Like, so why haven't you gone to university? And they say, I'm waiting for admission, or I'm trying to work to pay my way to go to university. I'm like, you don't even need to do any of that because student loan is there for you. And part of the challenge in Southern Nigeria is that Southern Nigerians have not embraced the whole idea of a student loan just because there's a word loan in it. So it's also not that the president and the government is not doing a lot. And mind you, it's not just the federal government, it's also the state government. Governor Sanwo-Olu, for example, is doing a lot of work. There are a lot of employment created in the new rail industry that Lagos is creating. The blue line, the rail line, for example. There's a lot of funding, for example, in a state like Lagos from LSCTF, Lagos State Enterprise Trust Fund, that gives entrepreneurs from 500,000 to 5 million, to start or scale up their business, depending on what the experience is. Lagos, for example, has a Latif Jakande Leadership Fellowship. There's a lot of initiatives that government is doing at the federal level. First is perhaps people are not many people feel like whenever they hear the government is doing something, they feel that maybe it's not true, maybe it's audio. They don't trust the process, they don't trust it, and so they don't embrace it. So I meet a lot of young people, you meet many of them, who don't know that student loan exists, or they know and they don't want to be part because they hear the word loan. And we have to now begin to sensitize them. Our brothers and sisters in northern Nigeria have embraced the student loan program massively. But down south here, many of us have not really embraced it, or we don't trust it, or we don't believe that it exists, and people don't even take the effort to try to leverage on this opportunity. Now, yes, there's a lot more that needs to be done. There are thousands of our young people that we need to engage, but government is not going to create all the employment. We're going to also, as young people, need to stand up to become job creators, to become entrepreneurs, and leverage on the funding and the support that government has. At the Youth House in Abuja 4 weeks ago, I had the MD of Nexim Bank, Abba Bello. I had a town hall meeting with young entrepreneurs, young people in exports. We had 2 hours one-on-one question and answer with him to discuss what are the opportunities in non-oil export. How can young people leverage non-oil export? You don't even need to go to America or to export to America and all. You can start by exporting to Benin Republic, to Cotonou, to Niger, to Ghana, and our neighboring countries. Leveraging after to enter into the regional market in Africa. So as young people, we also need to think outside the box and leverage on this opportunity. There are a lot of talks about the opportunities that the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement gives to young people. But how many of us are going out of our way to see how we can begin to enter the African market, even with our products? And yes, we need funding to start up. How can we leverage some of these funding? How can we make opportunities that people like BOI and Nexim and the others have? So yes, I agree with you. There are a lot of young people out there that we need to engage with ourselves, also what our government is doing, and leverage on those opportunities to be able to also grow our things. Because in this same system, we have young people who are building fintechs, who are creating solutions in tech, in IT, who are building innovation. So we've also got to be driven and to build something out of ourselves. I grew up in the Mutemeta, Lagos, and I refuse to let the environment that I grew up to determine and define who I became. I wasn't given opportunity. I went out there to fight for it. I went out there to look for it. I created solutions. I lobbied. I did initiatives. I started my career running NGOs, using my school, my money my own allowances to do programs in my community. So, Ashwaji always says, power is not served a la carte. People see me today as the youth leader of the ruling party. What they did not see were many years of organizing conferences, seminars, in Ebutemeta, in Surrey, in Lagos, with my own pocket money, with my friends coming together to want to make a difference in our community and our society. Yes, government has a lot to do, but we as young people also need to take our destiny into our own hand and begin to do a lot of stuff and then leverage government opportunities to benefit. Look at the Ministry of Agriculture in Lagos.
Dayo Israel, if I may interrupt, you've spoken about a number of the things that you did as, when you were much younger, and the opportunities that you've created for yourself and how young people need to leverage these opportunities. Let's also, talk about the average state of mind of the average young person. There's some measure of discontent. We hear about these opportunities that you're mentioning. How many young people know of these opportunities? What role has been made? I mean, maybe you can share with us how you've been able to communicate the availability of these opportunities, because it's one thing for the opportunities to exist, it's another thing for people to be aware of the opportunities existing and even trusting their access to these opportunities, because again, there is a breach of trust between the government and the governed. So they would just assume these opportunities will not get to us. It will be them. I'm sure this is not your first time, Dayo, that you're hearing, this kind of sentiments being expressed. So what would you say maybe in your role as youth leader you have done or you're doing? One, to communicate the opportunities that are available to these young people, and to ensure that we breach that trust, breach that gap, that young people can then feel that everyone, every one of them deserves, or every one of us deserve access to these opportunities, and it will not be, some form of back-end lobbying that would impact it.
Thank you very much. So another fantastic point. First, the administration has its communication team in Abuja, and they do a lot in terms of communicating these opportunities. For example, things like student loan, they have media advert, they have used social media. Many of the other government platforms does a lot to showcase the opportunities that are available to young people. I also agree that more needs to be done aggressively. And that's why I should leader of the ruling party. I now decided, working with my team, to begin to also help young people to connect to this opportunity. I told you about the youth house to set up in Abuja. Part of what we do is that averagely in a week sometimes, we have 3 to 4 days of event at the youth house in Abuja, where we're hosting government officials, MDs of agencies and parastatals in town halls and conversations. We stream them online, but we don't also just do that. We partner with TV stations like yours to stream those events and activities online. But young people are also more on social media, to also push that on social media. So I'll give you an example. Just last week alone, on the Sunday, we had a speaker of the House of Representatives who was sharing with us, what the National Assembly is doing in terms of youth engagement, in terms of appropriation and legislation for young people. On the Monday day after, we had a meeting with the minister. We had a visit at the youth house in Abuja by the Minister of Trade and Industry, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. All this are on our social media, on my social media, my Twitter, my Instagram, and the APC Youth Wing Twitter account, and Dayo Israel or APC NG Youth Wing. So we stream them on our Zoom, on YouTube, and all of that, and we the content on social media where Dr. Jolie had to, as a matter of fact, I personally, there's a video out there where I personally spoke to her on how Bank of Industry, SMEDAN, and other agencies under Ministry of Trade and Investment needs to come together and do more and create a channel for young people to really innovate. And how, as a matter of fact, I challenged the minister of that day that we need to create a special pot of funding for young enterprise like the U-Win program, so that we can move beyond 500,000 to 5 million. Still be able to give young people as much as 10, 20 million naira, fundings that can, pay for their shop rent, start for 6 months, equipping, generator and all of that, for them to be able to build businesses and become employers of labor. This was a conversation we had with Dr. Duwale on Black Tooth Monday. Interestingly, on the Wednesday after, which was 2 days after, we was at the Minister of Women Affairs, where we had a conversation about how legislation needs to be introduced to protect our women, in particular in marriages, where a lot of, the divorce rate is very high in Nigeria right now. And part of what we raised was the fact that We need to, implement legislations that will protect women who are coming out of marriages. A lot of young women were able to express their concerns to the Ministry of Women Affairs. And this event was also streamlined. And finally, on Friday, we have the Senate President, Goodwill Akpabio, who also came to the Youth House to engage and interact with our audience. If you see a video trending across Nigeria about Akpabio's donation to a young person on the plane, that was our program, and that was his speech at our event. So, the kind of things that we've created a platform to showcase.
Thank you for reeling out some of the activities that you've done in the short time you've been in office. But let's talk about something apart from the youth development isn't just economic. I saw a video on social media yesterday, and I'm glad the Delta State Police Command has stepped in. It was cult members initiating a very young boy. It was terrible, to put it lightly. What policies exist? Because a lot of Nigerian youth, there's youth restiveness, there's youths are going into cultism, drug abuse, and all sorts of vices. What policies exist to support mental health, addiction, recovery, and social integration for vulnerable youths?
Thank you, and I think that's a critical area. There are two areas I want to respond to that matter. Mental health is one, but also the culture and the fabric of our society is another. We've seen a spike in issues around drug abuse among young people, and I believe that as stakeholders, as communities, not just government, even as families, we need to begin to take responsibility for raising our young people, mentoring our young people. The faith-based institution needs to also come in to do more to support young people. I want to commend Pastor Rapo for what he's doing in terms of helping young people to come out of drugs, addiction, and all of that. But there needs to be more concerted effort. Civil societies working together with government to be able to deal with that. Then also comes the issue of orientation. We need to do a lot to also restore hope and inspire our young people that they have value, and because many times when young people don't get it right growing up, they begin to go into drugs. So mental health, the prevention is an area that we need to also, both as government, as faith-based institution, as families and communities, we need to work on. We need to collaborate to ensure that we can, engage our young people, reorient them, increase their confidence in themselves, support their self-esteem and all of that, and also implement legislations, which I also must commend Colonel Bubabawa, the former governor of Lagos, the former military administrator, for what NDLEA is doing to clamp down on drug pushers and also those who are distributing drugs and harmful drugs to our young people. At the same time, we also now need to begin to look at the issue of support for those who are already having mental health issues. Yes, the government is also doing its own through its ministries, such as the Ministry of Health and other agencies. Even at the state level, many of the states has programs. I know, for example, some of the state government, like the Edo State governor, has SSAs on drug abuse that goes to orientate and engage young people and to support them. And we also have centers, for example, where people can go for rehabs. We need to continue to do more, and that's important because these young people are our future. They are the future of our nation.
Okay.
And I want to use the platform as well to call on people like NAFDAC to do a lot to help us to clamp down on those guys who are exploiting our young people, the future of our nation, into drug abuse.
All right. I know we're really out of time, so we'd really appreciate if we can get quick comments and responses from you in the next set of questions that we have to ask. I'm going to go back to the Youth Confab. You haven't spoken about that. It was supposed to hold recently. Nigerian youths are waiting to hear from the APC government when it will hold. What's happening with that? That's one. Secondly, because of time, please, what's the way forward for area boys? Because if you've been following through, it seems we have more area boys than we've ever had in the history of Nigeria now.
Thank you. I think I would say that in the areas of area boys, we need to, which is what I said earlier, we need to do more for our young people. We're doing a lot already, but as government, as civil society, as faith-based organizations, as religious bodies, we need to do more to inspire young people, to help them to understand the potential that they have. And if young people understand more of what they carry, they won't go into drugs, they won't become street urchins. Because the society, yes, should be able to provide more opportunities, but we also need our young people to be able to leverage on more opportunities and also to be self-driven and inwardly. And so I'm calling on every stakeholder, as government, as a party, we are doing our best. As an individual, because I've been involved in youth development even before becoming the national youth leader of the ruling party. I've been running NGOs since I was a kid, for those who know me. In terms of youth engagement and youth participation, we must and we will continue to do a lot. And we would also continue to lobby our policymakers to do a lot more in terms of youth development, youth engagement,
all right,
as they have always done.
All right, Israel, hold that thought. I know you're going to speak about the Youth Confab, but we need to go on a break now. When we come back, we'll begin with Youth Confab. Please stay with us.
Welcome back, Breakfast Central, and we are still discussing with Honorable Dayo Israel, who joins us live here via video conferencing. Thank you so much for your time. Now, before the break, we did ask the question concerning the Youth Confab. I think we'd like to put a closure to that. When is it happening? Is it even going to happen? And I think you were also responding to the area boys, but let's talk about the Youth Confab first. Let's deal with that.
So first, the Youth Confab is a very noble idea, a very fantastic idea. However, I'm not really involved in the Youth Confab. It's a program of the Ministry of Youth and the administration. But the idea is that the party will take a back seat on this one so that it's not an APC youth agenda, but a Nigerian youth agenda. And so the party is not necessarily directly involved in the planning or the organization of the Youth Confab. So I won't be able to speak about this. It will be the role of the Minister of Youth to respond to that.
Okay.
So let's then go back to the conversation about area boys that my colleague had asked about. You were speaking to some of the NGOs that have worked, to take a number of them off the streets. If you can maybe speak to, if you can mention particular NGOs that we worked with. We have a number of people taking off the streets, where we started from, where we are, and what the projections are for where we ought to go to.
So there are a lot of NGOs who are doing a lot to support, young people or, street urchins and those who are drugs on the street. And like I mentioned earlier, Pastor Tony who's at the forefront of many of this, and a lot of other through this present house, and a lot of many other organizations that are doing this. I think what is central to this is that we need to renew the hope of our young people. We need to inspire young people. We need to orientate our young people. We need to restore hope and confidence in the young people. Many young people nowadays, in particular with the use of social media, have become, mentally drained. They've become more materialistic. They fit into society, and they've been driven. And what we then need to do is to begin to pass a positive message. And I believe that the faith-based institutions, the churches and the mosques, have a critical role to play in this. And they do that a lot in the North in particular, where, the clerics use the power of, the sermons on the Friday prayer service to teach values. Same with the churches on the Sunday. And we can't put all of this on the government alone. The government relies on the support of faith-based institutions, traditional leaders, traditional rulers, and all of that to be able to pass this message, this positive message, message of hope in young people.
I like what you say. I like that you said we cannot rely on the government alone, and that the faith-based institutions have a role to play. And yes, Pastor Tony Rapo with the Freedom House, they're doing incredible work picking people off the street. But let's talk about the role that the government has played. And you, as the APC youth leader, the role that you are playing, are you making suggestions and recommendations to the government on how we can engage them? Because the general sense is that the political class weaponizes the young people, and that they become very useful during elections. We'll see them in 2027, and how a number of the unemployed ones will be put to good use. So what recommendations would you say you've made, and how is the government, what role is the government playing? We're not talking about the faith-based institutions now.
So part of the recommendation that I keep making to our policymaker is for us to put more money in the hand of young entrepreneurs and young people. And they said, there's this word I'm trying to remember, and idle hand is the devil's workshop. And like I mentioned to you during that meeting when we hosted the Minister of Trade and Investment, was to lobby that more funding is structured through organizations like SMEDAN. Sorry, I've got sore throat. Through organizations like SMEDAN, Bank of Industry, Nexim, and other agencies under Bank of Agriculture can put more funding, more resources into startups, into young entrepreneurs, into small businesses, who can then in turn create jobs. And by the time our young people are busy and they are contributing to development for their families, we are able to then get a lot of them. If you are busy and you are trying to build something, you are trying to be part of something, you won't have time to be engaging in some frivolities, So yes, there are funding, there are grants that we've implemented for young people. Part of what I do as a national leader of the ruling party is to lobby our policymakers, lobby our ministers, and let them see areas where they need to improve. And like I said, that's part of why we established a lot of programs at the Youth House, the National Youth House in Wuse to Abuja, where every week we host one ministry or the other, to come and not to share their plans and the programs and activities of the ministry to the young people, but to be able to hear from young people firsthand on what our expectations are from the administration. Because for us also as a party, we're concerned about the mood of the country and the feelings of the people, and our job is to be able to continue to help policymakers to understand what is going on, understand what the priorities of young people are, and how to respond and address to those. And they've been very open, very receptive to the ideas, and we hope that by the grace of God, when the budget begins implementation, 2025 budget begins implementation, a lot of these programs will now, and interventions by the government will be implemented to impact the life of young people.
Now, Dayo, I still want to go back to this issue. You told us you grew up in Ibutemeta, and we understand your humble beginnings, but I don't think things are as terrible as they used to be there. And I'm talking about the youth restiveness we see across Nigeria. There's a generation growing restless, the so-called area boys, agberos, street lords. They take illegal taxes from people. You can't trade in certain areas without paying them. Your vehicle must not break down in certain areas, or else you will be harassed or threatened with violence. And this has become a serious menace in Lagos. And I'm sure when you were growing up, it was never this bad. As somebody who honed his skills in Lagos, and Lagos does mean a lot to you, to see your state become a haven for these youths that are, sometimes it's not their fault, they're just victims of circumstances, and as they hand life dealt them. What specific policies or steps, or is the government even aware that this is a problem, or like my colleague suggested earlier, that they're just happy to weaponize this poverty and this youthful restiveness for political gains come electionary season?
So I think it's also important for us to be a big part of. Let me give you an example. There's an adage in Yoruba language that says, "Amoko erewo," and Amoko replied as, I'll interpret it for you. And Amoko replied and said, "Okelewo ewo sale." In other words, they said, "Amoko, your luggage or your head is tilted," and he said it's tilted because you're not looking down, you're looking up. You have to look at the base, the fundamentals of the factors. You've referenced Lagos in particular, but this is not just a Lagos matter. Lagos is just receiving the brunt of this. I'll give you an example. When many state governments, in particular, across other parts of Nigeria, are not able to provide, and see, let's be clear, the president has his role and continues to play his role. And look at what he has done, for example, with the fundings for the fuel subsidy removal, the savings from the fuel subsidy, which has put into the hand of the state governors. There are still state governors who are not performing their role, who are not focusing on infrastructure like we're doing in Lagos, where Babajide Sanwo-Olu is building the red line, the green line, the blue lines, and all of that, creating more roads, more initiative. Recently, the E1 sport event was held in Lagos. There were also some initiatives like
Dayo, sorry to interrupt you because of a lack of time. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm talking specifics. What you're doing now, you're trying to shift the blame to governors. I need specific policies on what the government is doing to channel this youth restiveness, and what you, as the youth leader of APC, what are you doing to channel this youth restiveness into something more productive for this youth of unemployed Nigerians that are just roaming the streets?
I think I've analyzed, I've raised a lot about that, on how government is financing education, for example. We want more of those young people to go into education, to go into TVET, to go into universities, and government is giving funds and intervention. But I'm explaining why you feel like, why there's a lot of that in Lagos. Because a lot of young people from across parts of Nigeria comes into Lagos, and when they come into Lagos, you have a huge population in Lagos that has to now manage and deal with the pressure that this puts a strain on the social services. And so when many of them get into Lagos, many of them have no families here, they have no relatives here, they have no accommodation, they have pushed to stay under the bridge or in different, slums and all of that. So the effect of that is that when they are not able to access government opportunities, or they're not able to be creative or to find solutions or to create a solution to problems that can become an enterprising idea, they then have to go into things like street hawkings and all of that kind of thing. But government continues to. I mentioned to you, for example, in Lagos there's a Latif Dakonde Academy. There are a lot of employment opportunities that the government has created. There's recruitment into the civil service. There's recruitment into the teaching service. For those that have NCE, Subeb just recruited a couple of hundreds of teachers in Lagos State. Same with Tescom is doing the same thing. The government just launched the Yomi Eco project that is leveraging the water to create a multimodal transport system. There are many of the initiatives that the APC administration is doing here. But maybe it's because they don't have the background, the educational qualification to leverage some of those things. They then, have to turn to the street to find a means of survival. So what we also want to continue to do as a government, both nationally and at the subnational level, is to help young people to be able to, build more opportunities for themselves, or leverage on what government is already doing. Go into university, leverage on the student loan. Don't wait for your parents to come and pay your school fees. There's free education in all the primary level. Get a basic education, get a secondary education. That way, you don't grow up to become a threat, but you're able to actually make something out of yourself and your family. So if we focus a lot on education,
all right, Mr. Dayo. Okay.
And we focus on enterprise, our young people will not be on the street who are, now becoming area boys and town.
Okay, Mr. Dayo, we do have some messages on our social media platforms, and some of the youths feel that, your comments are more for the elitists. Those who went to school, these platforms are created for them. People can use this platform. We are coming down. I don't know, but I just want to ask. I don't know the last time you had to change your tire on the expressway. I know it may have been a very long time.
It's not a long time. I'm not a big man. I'm just a young Nigerian.
So I want to take it that you don't have security. You don't have security with you. You don't have police officers with you. I want to take it like that. That you don't have police officers. You don't have police details. You don't have police officers around you.
I drive myself sometimes. I go out sometimes alone.
Okay, so it's come side. It's neither here nor there. Sometimes you do. But our questions.
Yes.
Just to wrap it all up, because we're out of time. I think we need to have another sit-down conversation on this, and we would like to also mention that our questions are not bordering on the elitists or what the government is doing at the top. We're really looking at those who are below the food chain. My colleague, myself, have mentioned, and most importantly, about the area boys, how it's really affecting movement in Lagos State, which it's a state you happen to also love and have lived and grown in. However, because of time,
it's my state of birth.
Beautiful. So because of time, maybe we would have a return on this and then discuss further on policies, especially for the youth, because every youth watching this program this morning, I can tell you that a huge percentage still feel that you haven't spoken about what really concerns those who are not able to attend these outreaches or programs that have been created. And finally, please permit me to ask this question. I'm begging my colleagues now. You did mention in one of your comments that the government is giving cash and so on. But do you really think that putting money in the hands of people is the right way to go? Because experts have said it clearly that giving people money is not really working in other climes, talk less of Nigeria. Do you really think that's the best thing to do?
My brother, there's no better solution to fighting unemployment, to tackling poverty, than investing in ideas, innovations, and startups. Let me give you an example. Under the UN program, I have a friend in Ibadan called Fumi. Fumi was running a shoemaking business. I was making maybe in a month 10, 15 shoes. From getting about 10 million naira from UN, she was able to rent a bigger shop, buy equipment and machine to make more shoes, hire employees, and then became an employer of labor. Had over 20 people working in a shoemaking factory. Same with another friend of mine who benefited, who had a laundry on Okwebi on Allen, was able to buy 10 washing machines, 2 dryers, ironing machine, and was able to employ people. We're not saying give freebies to people. We're saying invest in entrepreneurship, invest in young people with innovation and ideas who can then create jobs, and we can employ more people. There are many young Nigerians who have great ideas, who have fantastic innovation. They just need funding to be able to start up. So yes, there are different categories of funding. For example, yesterday, my friend Moyo, the chairman of Kushofe local government, supported a lot of elderly market women with 50,000 to help them to build their business. For that category of people, it's an investment that is a lot that helps them to buy maybe more bottled water, more minerals to grow that business. But we also need to put money. Look at Iyaboye, for example, with money from angel investors and venture capitalists, that is able to scale Andela, Flutterwings, and of the business that
Dayo Israel,
because of investment.
We have to go. Dayo Israel, in 30 seconds, what would your response be to those who criticize you because of PS5? They're saying the Senate president came to the youth house to play PS5 and you're not focusing on the issues that matter. What would your response be?
So I'll tell you the whole PS5 story. The youth center
in 30 seconds, please.
Has 4 different event halls. So the whole PS5 story is people who don't understand what we're trying to do, because some people have chosen to just say everything about government to be like, what the Senate president came to do was to engage Nigeria. We saw the video everywhere where he was talking about how we even helped the young man on the plane with $85,000. That was our program. So people think that because the youth house that is a game center. No, it's not a game center. It's a life-changing center. It's a center where young people come and engage with policymakers, key decision makers, and are able to actually express themselves and hold government leaders accountable.
All right. Okay, we hope that we can, expand this further. Unfortunately, Dayo Israel, we've run out of time. We have to end the conversation now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
When we come to the Federal Capital, we can come and visit